Hey guys, this is Chelsea from Teaching in Pearls, and welcome back to my channel. Today I will be giving you my 10 tips. I don't even know what this is called. Today I'll be giving you my 10 tips for first year specialist teachers. So in my building, the music, art, PE, technology, we're called specialists. I know in other buildings they have different names. When I taught middle school, I was an elective teacher, so whatever. But one of my subscribers asked me to put together 10 tips for music teachers, and I was thinking in my head, I was like, I can't come up with one of those videos. So many people have done really good versions of the 10 tips videos. I'll link a couple of my favorites down below, and I was like, I don't know if I have any unique advice, but once I started writing them out, I was like, boy, I could put together 100 tips for specialist teachers. They're really pretty much anything that the tips are pretty much geared towards anybody who teaches a wide amount of students and a wide amount of classes throughout the whole week like I do. I teach 28 classes, 600 to 700 students. We have a lot of transiency, so it fluctuates throughout the year. But yeah, so my tips are geared towards specialists, but if you're a first year teacher not teaching that many students, you might find some of these helpful too. So tip number 1 would be to have procedures on the first day of class. So yes, get to know your students, because tip number 2 is all about that. But what is most important, since they only see you 45, 30, however many minutes a week, it's usually once a week for that long, or maybe if you're lucky they see you more than once, but in my case, I see my students once a week for 45 minutes. So it is really important for them to know what to expect, how to enter the room, how to exit the room, so that the next time I see them, we can actually get into the lessons. Because if you think about it, I'm only seeing them once a week, so I'm really only seeing them like a few dozen times a year, which is insane to me. So I don't mean the first day like hound them with all your rules and stuff, but just have the procedures in place. Practice the simple things, especially with your really little ones. I actually, since I teach 28 classes, my first year teaching elementary school, I said the same speech over and over 28 times, and by the time I saw my Thursday kids, I just know that it was the most boring thing they had ever listened to because I had said it 28 times already. So last year, my second year teaching elementary music, because my first 2 years of my career I taught middle school, and I only saw them every day, so one day of procedures, and then we got into singing, right? But last year I got smart and I recorded my procedures, which I can link down below. I'm gonna make a new one for this year because I've changed a couple things and my room looks different, and I like to show them little clips from what I did over the summer, and I traveled a little bit. So anyways, I'll put that below, but I got smart, and so every time I saw a new class last year, I showed them that video, which was less than 10 minutes, and then it gave us a lot of time to discuss the procedures and then to get into work, because I didn't have to stumble through, oh, what did I forget to say? It was all in the video, and I actually found that the younger kids were way more engaged with watching me give the rules on the video versus having me give the rules to them right up front. Although my younger kids did get really confused, and they kept asking where the lady was, and I was like, I'm the lady. And they were like, where is she? She's supposed to be sitting there. And I was like, it's me, so whatever. I mean, kindergartners, just some things over the head. Rule number 2, most important, not rule, tip number 2, learn their names ASAP. If you do not know your child's name, you do not have a relationship with that child, and I will take that to my grave. I teach between 600 and 700 students, and I know every single child by their name. Yes, there's probably a few dozen that if I saw them like not in school and out of context, like out in the neighborhood or whatever, I might stumble. I would probably know what grade they are, what class they are, and I might need some help. But for the most part, I know every single student by their name. If I see them in the hallway, I can greet them by name, and knowing their names and pronouncing their names correctly, which is also very, very important, and that's not even an option. You don't get the choice to not pronounce a child's name correctly or not use their name because it's too hard to pronounce. Like, that's not your choice as their teacher. Anyways, I will not get on my soapbox on that, but learn their names as soon as possible. Do whatever you need to do to learn them. It was hard to learn 600 names. Believe me, it's not easy. It took me a couple months, but the beauty of being a special teacher is that I get them year after year after year. So last year I only had to learn the kindergartners and the new students' names, and then same thing this year. It gets a lot easier, I promise. But my tips for learning hundreds of names would be, 1, tell the kids, just tell them up front, I really want to learn all of your names, but please give me grace. I have 600 of you that whose names I have to learn. If you see me in the hallway, feel free to quiz me. My students love that. They'd be like, Miss Hiller, what's my name? And it like really made me stay on my toes. I also play a lot of games. A lot of the songs we do are name songs with grades like 3 and below. I have seating charts for everybody in every class. That helps me learn names. I keep them in those seats until I know the names. Sometimes with the little kids, we would play a game where they'd all stand up and then I would try to say everyone's name, and if I messed one or I like stumbled and couldn't remember it, then everybody would have to stand back up, and they thought it was really funny like when I got them wrong. So that was something we did if we had extra time at the end of class. What else? Learning families really helps me learn the names if I can associate them with their siblings or whoever they live with, their cousins, whatever, whoever they go home with, whoever they're spending the most time with, whatever the family dynamic is. That helps me remember their names too. But have your procedures on day one so that you're cutting out the waste list. Oh, what do I do now? What am I supposed to do for this? How do I get in the room? How do I exit? Once they know that, you have so much more time for learning and for relationship building. And number 2, learn their names immediately. Number 3, this is something that I feel, I don't know a lot about the dynamic of going to school for being an art teacher or being a PE teacher, but I do know the dynamic of going to school to be a music educator. And I feel like I can say from my experience of going to a performing arts school through high school, going to college for music, touring a lot of other music schools, having a lot of friends that did music education in other schools, there is often a dynamic that music teachers going into elementary schools can be a little stuck up. So bear with me. Tip number 3 is to meet the students where they are. I know you are so excited about everything you learned about classical composers and all this music theory, and you want to drop all this knowledge on your students, but you don't know what kind of situation you're walking into. And if you're trying to throw this level of stuff at your students, but they're used to this level, then it's possible that they're going to get really overwhelmed and your class is not going to be enjoyable for them to attend anymore. I am not saying that you can't get to this level of stuff, but you do need to meet the students where they are, and you can challenge them, but you don't want to overwhelm them and suddenly they're used to having, like in my example, I came into a position at the elementary school where there was a long-term sub in my position, and I think he enjoyed music, but he wasn't like musically trained or anything, so obviously we have a different approach to it. And it turned out that they watched a lot of movies, so I came into a class where my students were used to sitting around and watching movies. That's literally what they told me when I got there, and I asked them what they had done the year before. They're like, we watched this, this, and this, and this, and I'm like, okay, so that's gonna be challenging. So if I would have immediately went into, here's all this music theory, and here's all these classical composers, and here's, let's go to the Baroque period, and blah, blah, blah. Yes, I got there with them, but I had to meet them where they were a little bit and turn everything more into games and more fun and have the buy-in approach. So all I'm saying is that yes, you can get to that stuff that you learned in college that you're so excited to teach them, but you might have to take a step back and meet the students where they are first so that you can get them to get excited about your class and find your class fun and motivating to attend instead of overwhelming and boring, which sometimes, I mean, I've observed a lot of music classes in my day because part of going to music school was you do like hundreds of hours in other people's classrooms, and some of those classes were boring. They were working out of textbooks. Like, I wouldn't have looked forward to that music class, so I don't want that to be my music class. Tip number 4, to get that buy-in and build those relationships with your students, go out of your way to get to know them on a personal level. If your students are in sports, if your school has like little sports teams, attend their games. That will literally make their day. It's so cool to be able to build this relationship with your students just because we get to see them year after year after year. I love supporting my kids. I've seen some of them in dance competitions. I've gone to some of their like musical events outside of school. Sometimes I'll see them at church, whatever. Just find what your students are interested in. As long as you put the effort in, they will see that and they will appreciate that you are putting that effort in. And then your time in class will be a little bit easier. Really, in my opinion, the key to classroom management is having relationships with your students, and that's fact. Tip number 5, and this is a hard one to swallow, guys, but if you are a specialist, you're in college to be a music teacher, art teacher, whatever, if you've observed in the elementary school, you understand that as a specialist, we need to know our role. So some situations you might be put into, which luckily is not mine. I am appreciated at my elementary school. I'm looked at as part of the staff, but where I student taught and where I got to do some of my contact hours for music education, that wasn't the case. Sometimes we would show up and our room just would be used. Like, they would be throwing a party in our music classroom and we would have to move it to a computer lab or something, you know, like just crazy stuff like that can happen. So you need to understand like what is your role at the school? What was the role of the prior music art teacher? How were they treated? Not that I'm saying that you shouldn't advocate for yourself and advocate for music education, but don't go in with the expectation that music is a highly valued subject at your school if it's not, because you need to know what you should expect when you get into that place. Once again, just like the curriculum, you can get there with your advocacy, with your awesome teaching, and with your relationships with your students. They'll start to value music more, and then you can get to that space of respect. But you might need to know your role, and you might need to start here and work your way up based on what the climate has been previously. So before the first day of school, if you can, try to sit down with the previous teacher and see what it was like. Do teachers pick up their classes on time? That's a big problem for a lot of elementary music teachers, that they will have one class and the teacher will be late to pick them up, so then they'll end up having two. You need to understand, do kids get pulled out? My students get pulled out all the time for therapy, for ELL stuff, and that's fine, but definitely understand what the expectations are with that so that you know what to expect when you start teaching. Number 6, and this is one I'm still struggling with, don't splurge too much on your classroom. I spent so much money my first year on stuff that I actually probably could have gotten provided by the district, but I was just like too scared to ask, or DonorsChoose, blah blah blah. So don't go out and buy everything for your classroom, at least until you know what's going to be provided for you. Yes, the Target dollar aisle is the cutest stuff ever, but I promise you, you can survive without having a super cutesy classroom for a while until you can save up the money and make it whatever you want it to be. Also, don't become a hoarder. I was a super hoarder. I asked like all these elementary teachers in Cincinnati if they, like whenever they posted donation things, I was like, everything. I have like sets of textbooks from other like buildings. I don't even know. I just took everything that was given to me, and looking back, I wish I would have been more selective in like what do I actually need and what will I actually use, because now I'm at the point where I have to get rid of a lot of it and donate it to other people now, which is fine. But just don't be a hoarder. Don't collect everything just because someone's giving it to you for free. Number 7, I sort of alluded to this already, but use DonorsChoose. If your school is a qualifying building and if your administration approves it, use DonorsChoose, because that can be a huge blessing. Also, create an Amazon classroom store and share it with your family and friends. Ask your parents to share it on their page. Ask your friends to share it on their page. Amazon Classroom is so nice. You just make a little wish list. I just titled it Music Classroom, and you put what you want on it. And I have boxes right now. I'm actually going to be doing another video unboxing them, where people have bought things from the Amazon and it gets directly shipped to my house that I can now take to my classroom. So use those resources. Don't pull everything out of your own pocket, because your pockets will get drained really quickly. So tip number 8, being a specialist can sort of feel like being on an island. At the building I am now, I'm the only music teacher. I never get to collaborate with other music teachers except at our, luckily our district does do monthly music teacher meetings, which is amazing, but I know that's actually sort of rare to have that kind of collaboration space. So get involved in your local music education community or art teacher community, whatever. I know in Ohio we have the Ohio Music Education Association, and we have district-wide meetings all over the state every 4 times a year, I believe. Hopefully a lot of other states. Hopefully you have a good NAFME program that you can find other local music teachers. If not, there are amazing resources on Facebook. There are pages just for general music teachers. There are pages just for choir teachers. There are pages for people who have the spectrums, like the video I made. Like there's a whole page for that. So look into joining those Facebook communities if you don't have a local community, because it can feel very much like being on an island, and having that community might be your saving grace down the road. Number 9, tip number 9, something I'm also still struggling with, is don't overcommit. Being a new teacher in the building, Brandon's laughing because it's like, yeah, okay. Being a new teacher in the building and feeling a personal connection to every single child who's in the building is gonna make you want to volunteer for all the things. My first year, I cannot even list on 2 hands how many committees I was a part of, and I still am definitely overcommitted to what I should be. I should say no a little bit more, but I've been better at doing things that I know will benefit me and will benefit my classroom, versus just signing up for literally everything just because they needed volunteers. Like guys, I was at every volleyball game doing tickets. I was in there all the time, every day. I had no work-life balance. I'm not saying my work-life balance is good now. It definitely still is under construction, but it's better. It was really bad. I was like at school 80 hours a week. I wish I was exaggerating, but between teaching middle school choir and after school high school programs, after school middle school school programs, and then volunteering for like every committee and event ever. I was always at school and it killed me. My health was horrible. I gained 20 pounds. I was tired. All I ate was fast food. Like, it was a mess. So please, please, please don't overcommit. And I know it's sort of ironic that I'm saying that after I'm saying attend your students' games, but attending a student's game is different than saying, yeah, I'll sell tickets at every single volleyball game for the next quarter. You know, like, there's a fine line. And also, when you attend your student stuff, you can bring in your family or your spouse or whatever to come support you and support your students. The students love when Brandon or my mom come into the building. They'll come to see the Christmas concerts and stuff like that, and they love it. They think it's hilarious that I have a boyfriend for some reason, which is rude. But anyways, don't overcommit yourself. Don't sign up for every committee, because unfortunately staff administrators will sort of prey on the newer teachers, not in a mean way, but just because they know you're so excited. Like, this person will probably want to stay till 8 p.m. to do this, and you probably will, because you'll just want to be a part of everything. But I promise you, make some time for you, make sure you have a good work-life balance, and don't overcommit too much. And number 10, which I just alluded to in that one as well, make time for your health. This is for any teacher ever. Teaching is so draining. I love teaching. I choose to be there. I choose to teach. I choose to return to my building. But it is draining emotionally, physically. Your first week of school will be the best thing ever, but also on Friday you'll be dead, so don't make plans. Like, it is draining. It takes so much out of you, so you need to make sure that you're making time for your health and your own personal well-being, because if you have an empty cup, you cannot pour into your students. And I learned that the very, very hard way when I was working way too many hours. If that means waking up to get a workout in so you can get some endorphins, then do that. If that means going to the gym straight from school so that you don't have an excuse to like go home and take a nap. If that means like cutting out naps entirely because they can like sort of throw off your circadian rhythm, do that. If that means that you need to drink more water, you need to pack healthy meals versus getting fast food every day like I used to. I mean, just do whatever you can to make sure that you're taking care of yourself, because that's the only way you're going to be able to take care of your students. I hope these 10 tips were helpful. If you have more tips, which hopefully you guys do, leave them in the comments for our new teachers so that we can help get them ready for the beginning of the school year. And if so, this is your first school year, that is so exciting, and I'm so excited for you. Hopefully at least one of these was helpful, even if you're not a music teacher or a specialist. Also, if your school doesn't call them specials, I would love to know what you guys call like your art, music, gym, PE, tech, whatever classes. So let me know that in the comments. And I hope you guys are having a fabulous day wherever you are. Be sure to subscribe and give it a thumbs up if it was helpful, and I will see you guys in the next video.